Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd love it for you to hit that subscribe button. Taking a little bit of a deviation away from statistical content this week, and I'm going to be looking at different ways that you might be able to earn some extra money. So we're going to be looking over the course of 4 videos at different kinds of remote freelancing and different job sites where you might be able to use some of the statistical skills and things you pick up on this channel, or things that you already know how to do to make some money. In this first video, we are going to look at a range of different types of freelancer sites. So these tend to be one-off jobs, and the different sites can have slightly different models of how they make money from you. But the most common is that they will take a percentage of what you charge. So the first 4 or 5 that we look at are all fairly similar, and the big risk and the kind of warning that I would attach to them is that with a lot of these freelancer sites, there's a little bit of a race to the bottom where there's lots of people who are offering similar skills, and so it ends up being that they will compete on price and bid down the price to the point where you may look at it and say, well, is this really worth my time? Because when we work it out, particularly as an hourly rate, maybe it's not so good. So it's the kind of thing where it's certainly worth signing up, having a bit of a look around. But unless you have a particular niche or skills that are in demand with high demand and low supply, then you may find it a little bit tricky. So the original one is freelancer.com. It's had a bit of an upgrade. If you have been around a while, you might have seen the old version, which was much more basic than this. And we can have a bit of a scroll down. They tell us about how it works. And we've got a few examples here. So here is some of the examples. And so, for instance, $45 to make a WordPress site. If you live in some countries, you might say, well, gee, $45 US is pretty good. But if you are a slightly more high-skilled worker, or you are in a high cost of living country, then that's not really a particularly good deal. Same for things like, say, $30 for logo design. And these are just examples. When you jump in, you do occasionally find better paying and more interesting ones. But you can see that people that are posting the jobs are often using these sites to try and get something very, very cheaply. So building a website for $100, well, if that person pays $100, they're going to get a $100 website. And sometimes you actually get a pretty nice website for $100. Sometimes you do not. And certainly in terms of someone that has got a lot of experience in building websites, they may look at that and say, well, that's not really a great amount of money for doing that work, unless they're doing it very templated and they're really just copying in some templates and changing a couple of words, in which case maybe $100, if they can do it in less than an hour, is actually pretty good. So that's our first one, freelancer.com. Jump to our next one, fiverr.com. So Fiverr, make sure you get the second R, so it's Fiverr with 2 R's. Fiverr started off where your very first few jobs you listed had to be $5. And that was great for people that wanted to get some work done very, very cheaply. Not so good for the freelancers. They've now realized that actually having people spend more money means they get bigger commissions, and they have relaxed some of those restrictions. It's a site where you need to do a bit of work to really have success on it. So they have tiers. When you very first start off, there's limitations on how much you can charge, how big a jobs you can do. And as you get feedback from customers or clients, then you can gradually work your way up. It's got a range of different things. So it's got more creative things, so music and voiceovers, video and animation, as well as things like writing, business, programming. I, at one point, did get a website made off the site. And earlier on, I was saying $150 for a website. Well, if you need a very quick one done, I was fairly happy with what I received. But I probably myself wouldn't make someone a website for that much money. So logo design, voiceover, WordPress, quite a big mix of things. You have probably got some skills in at least one or two things somewhere in here where you will be able to pick up some jobs, and sometimes they can be pretty interesting as well. So that's the thing. The other thing that I always look for is, and I hadn't seen astrology and psychics before, but it's a pretty interesting one, actually modeling and acting. So there's a few new ones in here that you might have some fun with if you happen to be a model or an astrologer or a personal stylist. Then you might be able to get a bit of work. Fiverr has more range, a little bit more interesting than freelancer.com, but does suffer a little bit from that. People are on there to try and get things done very, very cheaply. Upwork. So Upwork is a little bit more commercially oriented. Still the same kind of ideas. So as a freelancer, you can jump on, people will post jobs, and you can put yourself forward for those jobs. The rates of pay can be a little bit better, particularly for, say, some of the marketing, writing work, also some of the IT type work. So it's probably a little bit more of a professional avenue, it's probably a little bit more business oriented. There is still design and creative that tends to be more oriented to, say, marketing or things for businesses. So Upwork, pretty good choice if you have maybe some slightly more traditional business skills that you can apply. You can see here, whilst there is design and creative, it is much more oriented to freelancers that are maybe helping startups or small businesses or doing little jobs and little bits and pieces for companies. Okay, so our next one, Truelancer. So Truelancer, a little bit late to the party, but similar kind of thing. As we scroll down, we can see that some of these ads here, website development, $6 per hour. This is probably a bit below most of you. So I included it here because every so often you do see here's one that's maybe a little bit more sensibly priced. You also sometimes will see this exercise physiology lab reports. Can you please do my homework for me? As an aside on that, if you are in Australia, if you are anywhere that's very unethical, don't do people's homework for them. But here in Australia, it is illegal, and you can actually get quite a big fine for offering cheating services. So don't do this, and certainly don't do someone's homework for $13. It's just bad. So included in there, there's a few interesting ones, but also a few very, very kind of low priced ones as well. But because it's not as popular, particularly if you are a little bit more of a niche skill set, you may find that there's jobs in here that you're not having to compete with as many people on. Okay, people per hour. So people per hour, again, pretty similar, a little bit more creative oriented. So illustrations and drawings and voiceovers and content writing. There's a lot of jobs in here that you can imagine are maybe more for someone that is also a creator or a creative, maybe it's a YouTuber or someone like that, that needs some of that more process and kind of technical work taken off their plate. So whereas, say, Upwork was kind of IT and accounting and things like that, more kind of creative and design in here. Still a bit of writing, still a bit of SEO type work, but just a little bit more of the interesting stuff. Still admin as well, which may not necessarily pay well, but could be something that is quite handy just to have a little bit of work, fill in some of the gaps. Okay, next one, Guru. So Guru, the last of these pretty similar ones that we've been looking at. So with Guru, here's some of their top skill sets. I included this because there's a few that we haven't seen categories as much in the others. So education and training, engineering and architecture, for instance. These are areas where you may be able to pick up jobs here that you weren't seeing on those other sites. Okay, so let's jump into our final three, and our final three are each a little bit different from what we've looked at so far. First one is Solid Gigs. So Solid Gigs is not a freelance site as such. It is more of a lead generation site. So this is for someone that's maybe already doing some freelancing, or is planning on doing an agency, and has their own website, has a little bit of infrastructure, and basically they are going to help you source your freelance gigs. So they kind of do the searching and matching, and the way that they make their money is off an annual subscription. So rather than taking a cut of your fees, you just pay an annual subscription, and then they try to link you up with clients. I have not tried this one. It does sound interesting. I'm a little bit hesitant based on the fact that you are paying no matter whether you are getting clients or not. It does have the 7-day free trial. I might try this, and if I do and I find success, I'll either post another video or at the very least add something in the comments here. If you have had a go of this one, please feel free to let us know how it was. So a little bit interesting, a little bit different from the other ones. And then our last two are slightly different again. So TopTal, they claim to have the top 3% of freelance talent. What does that mean? Well, it's a little bit marketing speak, perhaps, but basically they make it a little bit harder. You can see here, apply as a freelancer. With these other ones, you basically sign in and you can get going. With this, there's a little bit more work for you to demonstrate that you are good enough to be on their platform. And then because they are really branding themselves as being high-end freelance talent, you are able to charge substantially more. So whilst those others are a race to the bottom, this one is a lot more of you showing why you are so good, and then being able to charge accordingly. So it is less range of categories. Doesn't really have the creative work as much, other than the design for things like UI and UX. Outside of that, lot of IT, lot of project management, product managers, finance. So if you are more of, say, a writer, or if you're a videographer, something like that, might not be the site for you. If you have those business skills, a little bit like with Upwork, you may want to jump in here. I have not yet signed up for this one, but I hope I can be convincing to maybe be in the top 3%. Certainly, I have a number of qualifications and quite a lot of experience in statistics and data analysis and things like that. So I may give it a go with this one. Just see what this process is like to be able to sign up and become a freelancer with them. Okay, final one we're looking at, codementor.io. So this is very much oriented to IT, but it's mentorship. So rather than having to actually do a whole lot of that kind of coding development work yourself, you might be doing things like answering questions, doing code reviews. You are really almost being like a little bit of a, not quite mentor, but kind of a little bit of a tutor, a little bit of a mentor. For some people, and some of actually the more satisfying mentoring that I've done has actually been, and you may be a little bit surprised if you haven't done any, but quite often it's actually very capable people who sign up not to be the mentors, to actually be the mentees. So I've found that with a lot of tutoring and mentoring that I've done, it's never been people where I've kind of looked and thought, oh, you need so much help. It's actually been people that are really, really capable, but are not very confident in their skills or their experience or their ability. So if you're someone who has a reasonable amount of experience and knowledge base, and particularly given this, there is kind of a focus on code and coding in IT here, probably more in that area, but you can certainly have a bit of an explore on the site, see whether your skill set would still be relevant to them. And we can see some people here: Ruby on Rails, Python, front-end developer at Amazon, conference speaker and course instructor. Well, it doesn't really say what areas those are in. But this is a pretty interesting one for those of you that are in maybe the IT space to do something other than coding, and really just being able to help other people develop their skills instead. So that's it for today's video. That was 8 different sites where you can get freelance work. In the next video, we will be looking at writing, transcribing, and translating. So sites that can provide work doing each of those. This is video 1 of a series of 4. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you back for the next one.